we get started, this show is made possible by you guys out there supporting. Thank you just for clicking on the video, and a very special thanks to Poner, Timey, and Laser Panda for donating to the show. Laser Panda's been pretty much a day one fan who actually got the amazing opportunity to perform in costume as Albert Einstein in a live setting with Peter being Hawking, the Einstein vs. Hawking Season 1 wrap, which sounds like an incredible once-in-a-lifetime experience. Panda also has the superpower to recognize any ERB episode before the opening announcer voice shows up. Batman, eat your heart out, this is what true power looks like. Thank you, Laser Panda, for your support. And Poner dubbed this battle easily the best female versus female episode because the bar is literally in hell. So true. And Timey said, hey, can you remind me what Watch Mojo thinks of this battle, because I forgot. And Timey, I'm sure you'll be happy to know that Watch Mojo dubbed this the #1 greatest battle of all time in their follow-up top 10 video, making it their de facto 11th best battle ever pick. And since we all know Watch Mojo was and is a bastion of quality, not total slop content, and paradigm of great opinions on media, this seems like an open and shut case. Might as well end the video here. Why even analyze the GOAT, really? But for shits and gigs, I guess let's do it anyway. Thank you all. If you'd like to donate as well, go to my Patreon in the link below and enjoy the video. Alright, who we got here? This is Angela Trimber as Cleopatra. Cleopatra was the last Ptolemaic pharaoh of Egypt, basically the last ruler of the country before the Romans took over. So what'd she dress like in real life? Who knows? It's literally impossible to tell. I mean, it was like 2,000 years ago. Science can't explain that, so I guess a Party City Egyptian Halloween costume might as well be good enough. As for Trimber, she appears to be a, we'll call it G-list actress, appearing in a huge amount of shows and movies in various bit roles. Good for her, honestly. She's worked very steadily through the Hollywood system, and though she hasn't seemed to have struck it big with a huge breakout role or anything, she's got a career, which is more than most can say. Also, her inclusion here is indicative to me of that change we've seen in Season 2 of shifting from YouTube collaborators to general comedic actor collaborators. And as famous 1950s movie actress Marilyn Monroe, we have Kimmy Gatewood. Gatewood's got a similar background to Trimber, a working-class comedy actress with many smaller roles to her name, although I'd argue with generally overall greater success. She co-created the Apple Sisters, and she even has a whole actual character in the show Glow. So maybe I'd classify her as D-list rather than G-list. Her appearance in the intro also marks this the first time since Shakespeare and Dr. Seuss that we don't see Peter or Lloyd in the opening title cards. And it also marks this as the very first episode to be Oops, I'll Guess. And I guess, yes, the elephant in the room. This is the first all-female ERB, Peter's unexpectedly decent Lady Gaga notwithstanding. It is a factor that I remember really did overshadow the battle itself upon release, which is unfortunate. That said, while I think it might have been inevitable in a way, it could have been at least alleviated somewhat if the theming was a bit stronger. As it stands, I mean, it's not the most nonsensical matchup ever, since you can draw a few thematic connections between the two. They're both often seen as sex symbols, they both had very famous love affairs with very powerful men and ended up dying tragically at fairly young ages. And if you really want to stretch things, you could call Marilyn Monroe the queen of the silver screen, and you can kind of parallel that royal aspect. Still, all of this feels like fairly weak theming, besides maybe the affairs angle, and for an immediately or more thematically appropriate matchup, I mean, Elizabeth Taylor's right there. An actress arguably more successful than Monroe from the same era who literally played Cleopatra. But the thing is, Liv Taylor didn't die young, and she didn't end up with the same pop icon status that Monroe did. And in ERB, especially the early seasons, they really did trade mostly on name recognition. So we end up with this fairly forced matchup that feels like it only exists because the team had trouble thinking of two women that were sufficiently famous enough, which isn't the greatest look and isn't the greatest feeling to have when you're starting this battle. And then having two people who are, sure, actors, but not really musicians and definitely not rappers perform the parts, it's not helping make these feelings go away, and it's not really helping distract from the obvious headline. It all works together to set this battle up with a weaker foundation than it needed to have, and to me points to essentially an unforced error from the very conception of the episode. Oh well, we'll see if they can overcome. Flows the dopest, huh? Yeah, we still say dope in pop culture, but it doesn't hit great here. And then, wait, Marilyn's is whose rap flows is? Okay, yeah, I guess it's grammar, but being technically grammar still doesn't make it a good opener. And saying you have a dope flow while using a pretty terrible and clunky flow, which is not dope at all, Not a great way to go prove that point. We're gonna have to start things off with a negative right out the gate.
Overthrow pharaohs who oppose me like most.
Okay. I suppose the Bible reference makes some sense on a literal level, but like, Cleopatra has nothing to do with the Bible times. Like, her Egypt is way removed from biblical Egypt and the Pharaoh of Moses that they're talking about. And Monroe herself has nothing to do with any Bible stories either, so it's just kind of random and also just kind of trash bars.
You could never kick my ass, so kiss my clitoris.
I guess it's fine. I mean, it's basically the female version of suck my dick, so I don't really know what to make of it more than just a neutral filler line.
This ugly hag and Cassim G got matching notes.
Wow, are you just allowed to diss your CEO like that? I guess yes if he's in the room with you and gets to ogle the talent while in a fedora. This is so awkward on a meta level, but I'll leave it neutral since I guess the line is fine, and one thing we do know about Cleopatra based on ancient coins is that she had a bit of schnoz. Shame they didn't, like, do the costume work here to show that, but well, I guess.
You better hold more than your skirt, miss, please.
Rip, Marilyn only got 8 bars instead of the usual 16. She got Chuck Norris. Damn, ERB Chuck Norris Marilyn Monroe. Anyway, the holding her skirt is referencing the famous Monroe image from 7-Year Itch with her holding the skirt that's getting blown up, but Miss Please? I literally cannot find any specific info on this as a phrase. I've never heard it before. I'm gonna have to assume it's some sort of stretch attempt at slut-shaming language, cause otherwise, I got nothing. Honestly, just another terrible opening verse, and while Gatewood's Monroe voice is pretty solid, I'm really not into Trimber's generic 2012 hip-hop delivery. Sure, maybe we couldn't do an Egyptian accent, but I'm certain we could have figured out a way to invoke the voice of an ancient pharaoh better than this.
Please. I'm the queen of the Nile, so just bow down to me.
Generic filler line with possibly sexual undertones kind of feels like that sentence will be summing up this battle, but let's hope for better and move on.
Plus you got so much experience down on your knees.
Add generic slut shaming to the list of automatic negative points.
Married a writer, but I don't even think you can read.
Damn, well at least they tried. I'm not quite sold, but I'd call it nearly a good diss. Monroe married Arthur Miller of Death of a Salesman fame, and I suppose she had a bit of a dumb blonde image, but there wasn't really enough here as setup to actually land this diss.
You'll sleep with any ugly dude who says he likes it hot.
See the previous negative for notes, although this time they tried to slip a Some Like It Hot movie reference in there.
Even Joe DiMaggio took a swing in your batter's box.
I want it to be known that on my rewatch for this video, I hit this line and saw whatever the hell this motion was, and just blurted out awful. Anyway, before Arthur Miller, Monroe was married to Joe DiMaggio. DiMaggio was a very famous baseball player at the time, and they dated for a few years, but divorced less than a year after their official marriage because he was apparently jealous since she was a sex symbol. Which, like, dude, you married Marilyn Monroe. And then were upset when she was sexy and people thought she was sexy. What a frickin' idiot. And apparently he was also abusive, so good job, Cleopatra, you're slut-shaming the abuse victim. Real classy.
I'm a descendant of the gods, don't anger me, trick.
It's trying, I guess. The pharaohs, as with many theocratic leaders, used divine rule as the justification for familial succession, i.e. they were literally the children of the gods, so they, and of course their children and their children's children and so on, should get to rule over all of the mere mortals. Remember kids, if anyone's selling you divine rule or something that sounds like it, they're full of shit and probably looking to mooch wealth and power. Anyway, I assume Cleopatra calls Monroe a trick, a demeaning term for a woman, as a "you're comparatively beneath me" diss, but it sounds clunky and awkward. I guess barely neutral, though.
You're losing better like your belt, little bitch.
Jesus, hell, what is she doing? Did Trimber decide on these, I guess we'll call them fly as hell dance moves, or is this a director's decision? Sadly, the ERB2 video did not answer it for me, but it did happen to be the funniest behind the scenes episode I've seen so far, and oddly enough, I'd probably recommend it over the battle itself, so go check it out. Anyway, Monroe had a prescription drug problem, like many celebrities, and it did eventually kill her. Not really funny, and not successfully used as a diss here, but neutral again because I guess they tried at the history part at least.
I have some ugly boys, but you're forgetting the others. Marlon Brando and the Kennedys. Well, you fucked your own brothers.
I don't know if I'm going delirious, but that was really funny, and actually a great diss. And while luckily Cleopatra appears to only have had children with Mark Antony and Julius Caesar, she was in fact married to her brother, and they probably did in fact go to the Neverland Ranch to hee-hee. You know what? I think this one's actually a 3.
You think you're so chic up in your fancy palace, getting low on Mark Antony, tossing Caesar salad.
Okay, fine. Yeah, it's slut-shaming, but like, it's not generic slut-shaming, since the wordplay is actually pretty good.
You wear too much eyeliner for anyone to adore you. You might as well be working the door at Sephora.
Okay, damn Marilyn, where was all this in verse 1? These flows might actually be the dopest. Sephora employees really do be looking like that sometimes.
I got an ass that won't quit. You had an ass that got bit. On the tip.
I'm not crazy. She definitely goofed up and said asp that got bit, not and got bit, right? So this is referencing how Cleopatra died according to legend, which was by snakebite, which may or may not be true, but we'll say it is, why not? I like the line enough, it's a point.
Somebody wrap this bitch back up in a car.
I'm a simple man. This is a bit dumb, but I think Monroe crashing out and finishing her verse while angrily removing her earrings is simply funny and good character work, and I'll give it a point.
You still got no children after your third marriage. You lost so many babies, we should call you miscarriage.
Oh wow, so Monroe tragically never had a child due to multiple miscarriages and ectopic pregnancies. These repeated issues probably played a role in her declining health and probably contributed to the dissolving of her marriage to Arthur Miller. It's really tragic actually. We shouldn't joke about it, but like, there is some shock value here. It is a line in the absolute poorest of taste, but I'm going to award it a point. Please do not torch and pitchfork me.
You got an hourglass figure, but that's about it. A candle in the wind that can't act for shit.
Oh my god, what was that? What was that voice? What are these line readings? What are these acting choices, bro? I just can't deal with whatever the hell Trimber keeps doing here. This is so whack. The line itself, whatever, it's fine. It references Candle in the Wind, which is the Elton John song dedicated to Monroe, but the acting insult is too shallow to really justify a point, especially when Trimber herself is dropping one of the worst performances in the series while saying it.
Translate this into hieroglyph.
Okay, got it. They cut Marilyn's first verse short because she's got a third one. I'm into it, always down for more complexity in my rap battles, and I'll rescind the Norrising allegations for now.
Your sandy vagina has a 7-year itch.
My god, I'm cackling. Maybe the line itself deserves only the 1 point, but with the visual of the hieroglyphics saying, "You've got crabs," and the added movie reference in there, I think it all makes it to a 3. If nothing else for the pure comedy of it.
My best friends are diamonds. You can't beat me.
Neutral reference to diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Step up and walk your ass home like an Egyptian.
Nah, boo. Lame way to end things, and that voice squeak thing pierces my brain in a terrible way. I really had some trepidation going in, and I never remembered being a huge fan of this battle when it came out, or really at any point since. And after each rapper's first verses, I thought we were in fact going to be looking at a total train wreck. But credit where due. Gatewood saves things in the second half and ends up delivering what I'd call a very good Monroe performance. I wish I could say the same for Trimber. It felt charitable, even awarding the 1 point to Cleopatra, who may end up being one of the most poorly realized characters to ever be portrayed on the show in what may end up being one of the most lopsided ever. Not quite BunnyCon, but when you're even in the same ballpark, you know something went horribly wrong in the creative process. Her costume looks cheap, her bars almost entirely center around ineffectively shaming Monroe's sex life, and nothing about the delivery conveys the historical figure of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh. And I cannot stress this enough. What in the goddamn are these dance moves? Overall, this is somehow both better and worse than I expected, but at least now we've proven that women, or at least one woman, can rap. And sexism will never rear its ugly head again and will never exist. Truly, a victory for the ages. Anyway, enough with this nonsense. Who's ready to watch two dorky dudes and a robot?